Now for another look at today's papers.
Hello there, you're watching the press preview. Our first look at what's on the front pages as they arrive. Over the next half an hour, we're going to be talking through the headlines with the political journalist Isabel Oakeshott and the Observer's chief leader writer Sonia Sodha. So hello again to both of you. So let's take a look at the front pages then. And the Eye reports Sally Challen faces a retrial after her murder conviction over the death of her husband was overturned. The Telegraph reports the legal decision could set a precedent for other cases. The Daily Mail also leads on the story, labelling the ruling a legal landmark. The Mirror also has the story on its front page. The Guardian warns inaccurate figures and a lack of sanctions could affect Britain's pay gap reporting system. The Metro leads with a guilty verdict in the manslaughter trial concerning the death of Luella Fletcher Mitchie, who died at the Festival music event in 2017. And The Sun also carries that story. The Times has learned that hospitals will no longer have to treat A&E patients within 4 hours under plans to axe a key New Labour target. The Express reports that MPs will get a £2,000 a year pay rise from next month, despite the ongoing chaos from Brexit. The Financial Times claims that activist investor Edward Bramson funded the majority of his 5.5% stake in the bank with a £1.4 billion loan from Bank of America. So let's talk through some of those stories now with Isabel Oakeshott and Sonia Sodha. And you've picked out a page in The Sun which covers various developments on Brexit. This is page 6, and the main headline there is "Set day to go and will back May." So who's saying this? And this is good news for Theresa May's deal.
Well, it could be. Might not be too good news for her premiership, however. So the suggestion is that some of the most sort of principled Brexiteers might be willing to back her deal at the final hurdle. We're not quite sure when this is going to be. It could be that the big meaningful vote, so-called, is next week, or it could be the following week. Critical to whether it gets through is the view of the members of the so-called ERG group, the hard Brexiteers, if you like. And there is now a suggestion that some members of that group may now be ready to support her deal, having said that they can't bear it if she gives an undertaking to leave Downing Street after the deal has gone through. And the reasoning they're thinking on this is, look, this is just the withdrawal agreement. It's easy for us all to forget that this isn't the whole thing. It's just the arrangements for us coming out of the EU in the transition period. And some of them are now thinking beyond that. And they're saying, actually, the real battle begins after March the 29th, when we've got to work out our future trading relationship. And what we want in Downing Street now is a true Brexiteer who can give us the kinds of future trade deals and the relationships that we're after.
I love the description of the real battle is to come, and you think about the battle that we've had to date.
I think they've now got their eyes on a bigger prize, as Isabel says, and that is the future relationship with the EU. And I think this is why. So there's been a lot of talk about, as well as how many of Theresa May's own party might eventually vote against her deal when it comes to crunch time, how many in the Labour Party might peel away and support Theresa May's deal. And I think this sort of arrangement that the hard Brexiteers in her party might strike with her is one reason why Labour MPs have got to be very, very careful before they agree to back her deal in exchange for reassurances about what a future relationship might look like. Oh, it might be quite a soft one, for example. Because actually, at the end of the day, if there is a Tory leadership election a few months after March the 29th, and you get a hard Brexiteer, say Boris Johnson perhaps, elected to be leader of the Tory party and therefore Prime Minister, it's going to be very hard for those Labour MPs to hold a new leader to account on what that future trade deal looks like.
And in the meantime, you mentioned that the vote could be as early as next week. That's one of what one of the other papers is reporting tonight. Is the suggestion then that Theresa May is on the verge of getting some kind of breakthrough with the EU?
Well, there are very mixed reports as to whether the vote could be brought forward. And, you know, we've had many false dawns before with the Prime Minister setting dates and then moving them and postponing them. Clearly, there are rumours going round that it might be as early as next week, and one would imagine that that must mean that the Prime Minister thinks that she's going to get some kind of concession. But it could also be that she's detected expecting that the scale of concession from the EU on the Irish backstop that is going to be required to win over the members of the hard Brexiteer group, if you like, might not need to be quite so dramatic as originally seemed.
Because we've had that hint, haven't we, from Jacob Rees-Mogg writing in today's newspaper, I think it was, saying it's not a massive change, the backstop, that I actually need. It's actually a tweak, if you like, an appendix, just on the end date.
Yeah, and how their tune has changed. And I think it's because of the shifting politics, the shifting sands. They know there isn't a majority in Parliament in favour of a no deal. They know that MPs are very unlikely to let a no deal through. So, you know, the goalposts have shifted, and they are now focused on what the future trading relationship and what will come of the political declaration and what that will look like.
But the fact that things are shifting and just have been shifting in the last few days has also prompted the resignation of another minister, someone described as being normally very loyal.
He is very loyal, yes.
And he's unhappy about the fact that there will be a vote on a potential delay.
So effectively what happened when Theresa May pledged that if her deal doesn't go through, whenever it may be voted upon, the next step will be to have a vote on no deal or a delay. By putting that out there as her next stage of plan, she has effectively, I mean, this is all rather complicated, and I can understand why people might be getting confused by the minutiae of it, but she's effectively taken no deal off the table in terms of her negotiations with the EU, because she knows there is not a majority for no deal in the House. So this particular minister or erstwhile minister is not happy with that strategy. To make matters even more confusing, even though he's not happy, and he's so unhappy that he's left the job that he loves, he has said he's going to vote for her deal anyway. So get your head around that if you like.
But it's when you look at what's happening to the Conservative Party at the moment, it is absolutely wrapped with divisions. You've got cabinet ministers writing letters into newspapers saying they fundamentally disagree with some aspects of the Prime Minister's position. So she's really trying to walk quite a tightrope in keeping people like George Eustace
happy. Lucky the opposition aren't too united.
That is
Jeremy
very
Corbyn,
true.
Some would say is treading a similar line.
Absolutely.
Quickly, before we move on from Brexit, let's just pick out the headline at the
Farage
bottom.
Crusade.
Farage Crusade, as they call it.
I'm properly excited about this. So there's going to be a Brexit March. Now, we're not just talking a little waltz around Parliament Square here. We are talking a hardcore 277-mile march beginning in Sunderland.
Is Nigel Farage going to be on the whole thing, though, do we think? Is he going to be camping out, putting on his hiking boots?
I think that Nigel Farage will definitely be on some of the march. I don't believe he's doing every stage of it. I mean, this is hardcore stuff. They're going to be doing 20 miles, I think, on the first day of the march. And hopefully there's going to be a core group of marchers joined by lots of others who will do bits of the march. And the reason for this is because there's a real feeling, I think, amongst Brexit voters of a looming betrayal coming up on Brexit. They sense that even if this deal goes through, it's a bad deal. And whatever follows, they really need to highlight the case of what they voted for and what they expect now.
OK, we should move on, but I'm guessing you're less excited.
She's not going on the march.
I'm not very excited. I certainly won't be on the march.
I was hoping you might. Sonia.
OK, let's move on to a couple of other front pages if we can. Front page of the Times next, saying that they understand that the 4-hour waiting limit that we have got used to in A&E is going to be scrapped.
Yeah, so there's a problem with the 4-hour waiting limit in that it leads to gaming of the system. So you see hospitals leaving people sitting outside in ambulances, maybe treating people with minor injuries first. But the issue with scrapping it is that it's very simple, very transparent. It's allowed us to keep track and the public to keep track of what's happening in the NHS in the last few years. And, you know, waiting times have got worse and worse for A&E. So I think there are real concerns about scrapping it.
Well, yes, because they talk about this idea that the problem is that people were being treated because they were just about to go over the 4-hour limit, not necessarily the people that needed the treatment.
Priority. And that has long been the debate over waiting time targets, which, of course, don't just apply to A&E. They also apply to the time you wait for consultant appointments and outpatients, and all sorts of other targets apply. And at the moment, the NHS is, whilst the majority of the trusts do meet the targets, it's at the lowest level it has been for a very long time. I've got mixed feelings about this. I think targets worked really well. They were brought in by the Labour government many, many years ago, and they were brought in because people were waiting 18 months for surgery, and it had an immediate effect. It really actually made a huge difference to the quality and timing of care that people were receiving. But, you know, you've got to be realistic about it. And when you've got people stacked up in ambulances outside hospitals so that the clock doesn't start ticking, that's something very wrong there.
And as you say, concerns that you won't be able to compare with the past and see whether things are improving if you change the targets. OK, let's take a look at the Guardian's front page as well, if we can. They are talking about the pay gap and reporting, this compulsory reporting. Is it by all companies now or just the bigger companies still that are reporting?
It's still the bigger companies, I think, this year. And what Guardian analysis has shown is that there have been lots of inaccuracies in the data that companies are sending to, I think it's the Government Equalities Office, or the EHRC, to which this data gets sent. And actually, what emerges is that the EHRC don't really have very many teeth to force companies to declare their data properly. So you're getting companies obscuring their gender gap pay reporting, which obviously detracts from what this data was meant to do, which is to increase transparency and show which companies are doing better than others. So it's quite it's a very data-heavy story, but I think it's quite an interesting one.
Important, presumably, for this to be accurate.
I mean, I actually think
the
issue is really important. No disrespect to Sonia, but I think the Guardian manages to make it sound a lot more boring than it really is. The fact is the pay gap persists. It's absolutely right that it should be exposed. I've never thought that we should have, you know, sort of go over the top on this and have quotas and all of that for people earning in different brackets and stuff. But absolutely,
but transparency is really important, and it's been a positive step forward. Yeah.
OK, we're going to take a break right there. Coming up, though, Tatler Magazine's Golden Rules for Social Media. I'm sure you probably know them all by heart, but if you don't, we're going to be telling you about them in a moment. Welcome back. You're watching the Press Preview with me, Isabel, Oakeshott and Sonia Sodha this evening. We're going to take a look now at a double-page spread in the Mail tomorrow. Corbyn did all he could to save ally is the quotation there at the top. And this is more controversy over Chris Williamson, the MP who has been suspended.
That's right. So a row has broken out over whether Jeremy Corbyn personally intervened to try and stop Chris Williamson from getting suspended. And Chris Williamson is this MP. A film emerged of him basically saying that the Labour Party had been too apologetic about, you know, anti-Semitism.
And he's since apologised for that.
He's since apologised and he's been suspended for that. And this row is really about whether Jeremy Corbyn tried to defend him and tried to stop him getting suspended. So you've got the Labour spokesperson very clearly saying, this is a disciplinary matter. It wouldn't have come near Jeremy Corbyn, but you've got some senior MPs, Siobhan McDonough is one of the ones named in this paper, who said that the Labour leader did try and personally defend Mr. Williamson. And really, I mean, it's just kind of open warfare, it feels like, in Labour now. It's clear that there are a number of Labour MPs who really don't seem to have faith in Jeremy Corbyn to sort of tackle the crisis of anti-Semitism in his party. He's come under a huge amount of criticism for the slow way that he's seemed to respond, the fact that he hasn't really sort of challenged it perhaps as strongly as he could, the fact that the disciplinary processes aren't working as fast as they could. So it's a really, really big problem for Labour. I think it was a significant factor in you know, a small number of MPs breaking away from the party last week. And all the headlines at the moment are about Labour and anti-Semitism, and it's really quite a shocking state of affairs.
And as you say, Labour saying it's categorically untrue to suggest that Corbyn himself had intervened in the case of Chris Williamson because he had no role in the disciplinary procedures.
I mean,
but they'll be uncomfortable.
Incredibly lame, you know, for them to say it wouldn't have come anywhere near him because it was a disciplinary matter. Well, it should have come near him, and he should have reacted differently. It seems to me absolutely extraordinary that month after month this story persists and the Labour leadership is utterly either incapable or unwilling. And the really worrying thing is not that they're incapable, but that they appear to be unwilling to tackle this utter poison in the heart of their own movement. And I mean, I agree with Sonia. I think we're really at a tipping point here, and that there are good Labour members up and down the country who are breaking up their party they are ripping up their party membership cards because they can no longer be part of this party. And it must be heartbreaking for those who have given whole careers to the Labour Party and all the good things that it can stand for, to see the Labour leadership failing so abominably to get on top of this problem.
Yeah, and in the meantime,
I'd agree with that.
Jeremy Corbyn would say that he's fought all his life against racism and is determined to stamp it out in the party.
Yeah, the problem is though is that it really is at a point now where words aren't enough. There needs to be action from the leadership, and lots of people, myself included, would say that the action from the very top of the Labour Party just hasn't been firm and unambiguous enough.
I think it's gone beyond that. I think we're at a point now where nothing except the removal of Jeremy Corbyn and the people around him is going to solve this, because all confidence has been lost in his will to deal with it.
OK, let's move on to the front page of the Express. This is about MPs' pay rise, and the Express suggests that there's outrage at it because they've had a decent level of pay rise. It's,
so MPs have agreed to accept a £2,000 pay rise, and this is a story that comes up periodically. Every few years there's a review of MPs' pay, and independent body recommends whether they should get a bit more or whether it should be kept level. Sometimes they refuse to take it for all sorts of good reasons. It's an easy way, always a sort of easy hit, isn't it, to have a go at MPs for having more money when so many people are struggling. I actually take a counter view on this. I'm not outraged at their £2,000 pay rise. In fact, I think they should be paid six-figure salaries. I think they should earn at least £100,000. The job they do is extraordinarily challenging. And whilst people may see pictures of the House of Commons chamber sometimes half empty, they forget that MPs work all evenings. Many MPs are out every night, all evening, on constituency matters, formal events. They work across the weekends, and we want good people to be MPs.
Do you only get good people if you pay them more, or do you want people that are only in it to try and make a difference?
No, I think MPs need to be fairly compensated, and I certainly don't have a problem with a £2,000 pay rise for them. I agree with Isabel that lots of them do really good jobs, and it's a really difficult 24/7 job.
Even if the percentage pay rise is a lot higher than...
Well, this is, I think, where it doesn't look so great. So I don't have a problem with their pay rise per se, but their staff are only getting a pay rise of 1.5 percentage points. And then if you look at lots of public service workers, lots of civil servants, their pay rises are capped at 1% a year, which is far below the rate of inflation. So it's great that MPs are getting an inflation-busting pay rise, but actually I think it's really important that doctors, nurses, teachers, civil servants get that sort of pay rise as well.
OK, very quick look at, finally, a story inside the Mail. This is page 5, and this is the golden rules for social media. So this is from Tatler. So what are they telling us?
So there's a variety of advice here, particularly relating to social media, as you say. So apparently it's OK to post pictures of other people's gardens, but not the inside of their houses without permission. Don't put snaps of other people's children online without asking them. I think that's sort of common sense, really, isn't it? And if you're a friend of the royals, you should observe a zealous social media blackout. I don't know how many readers of Tatler are friends of the royals, but probably more than in the population at large, you might expect.
I think many might like to think they have a chance of being maybe, and also some advice on not asking guests to remove their shoes when they come to your house, which I think is controversial. I hate being asked to remove my shoes. Who wants to pad around in bare feet when they've got nice shoes on?
And apparently it's not OK to pick up a well-known chocolate brand at the station and take that as a gift when you're going to a dinner party, which is something that I do all the time.
Because that brand is sold at a station, so
yeah, so people know you've picked it up along the way. But I mean, what's wrong with that?
On those invaluable bits of advice, thank you both very much indeed, and we shall see you soon, Isabel and Sonia. Thank you.